Hey, I'm Kid Adams,
And I'm old mate Nate.
and you're listening to The Late Show on IPL Radio. Another one that I picked up on during the week was how tea used to only come from China. Did you know that?
Like tea leaves.
Like tea leaves. Tea leaves was a China thing. Like
Oh,
a
man.
good
Just
cup
when
of
I thought I
tea.
found something that wasn't made in China, I find out that it was made in China.
It was strictly only in China, right? And then apparently there was this lady, I forget her name, but she had like travelled a bit and she ended up in England and she asked someone to make her some tea. All of a sudden it became all the rage in England. Everybody wanted tea.
That's what you think of when you think of tea. You
Now
think of
tea, yeah.
a
England
cup of tea.
is the third highest drinker of tea in the world behind
Third?
India and Turkey.
Okay, I don't
Only
think of
Turkey.
tea to India. I mean, yes, but no.
Well, let me finish this little tidbit for you, a little fun facts, little
Well, here we go.
scenario
Here we
got
go.
here. So this is back in the 1800s, I believe. China still controlled all the tea in the world, and anybody that wanted tea had to go to China and export it from China. And they had the plants that grew it. Nobody else had these plants. They couldn't grow it, couldn't farm it, couldn't create tea. Had to go to China to get it. And China built their economy off this, built a strong economy off this, and they demanded silver. Payment for tea had to be made in silver, right? And so silver wasn't readily available over in England that much, but what the English had come across was opium. So they got the Chinese community hooked on opium. And then they would sell them opium, which is heroin,
Yeah.
and got the Chinese communities hooked on opium, and then they would sell them the opium.
Was
but
this was before they were a superpower, right?
who China?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is back when, I mean, like, if England and China went to war right now, it would be extremely one-sided. Like, China would dominate. Back in the day, the exact opposite. Right?
Yeah.
So, England wanted the tea. China wanted silver for the tea. England didn't have much silver, so they got the Chinese people hooked on opium, heroin, and then instead of the people, so they could get the silver to buy the tea. And the opium they sold brought them enough silver to pay for all the tea they ever wanted. Like, they had plenty, you know.
Start growing it themselves.
The Chinese communities stopped working so much in the tea fields and just ended up hanging out in bloody opium-infested drug dens over in China and stuff like that.
Wow.
Got their community seriously addicted on opium, right? And to the point where the Emperor of China at the time actually wrote an open letter to, I believe it was Queen Victoria at the time, and asked her, in an open letter means that it was like public, like the public could view it and stuff like that, asked them to stop importing opium into China. It was still illegal at the time. Like, illegal in China for opium and stuff like that, you know. So that letter got completely ignored because they wanted their tea. And the only way for them to get the tea was to get the silver. And to get the silver, they had to sell the opium to get the silver to buy the tea, right? So they'd done that, and they kept on doing it. So the emperor then... because opium was illegal, signed off on a warrant for a raid on some warehouses in China where the British naval forces had been importing all their opium, leaving it in warehouses, buried like kilos of opium and stuff like that, raided the warehouses, got the opium, destroyed it all and stuff like that, started the first drug war between England and China.
Wow.
All over that, right? And so, it goes further, war was started, England dominated China because their navy at the time was completely unrivaled, and they would have just owned the South China Sea and just opened up a barrage on China. China ended up going to treaties and just getting decimated to the point where they had to pay back $21 million worth of opium at the time that they had destroyed when they raided those warehouses, and also signed over Hong Kong to the British.
Oh, yes.
You remember how Hong Kong was under British rule?
Yeah.
That's all because of these opium wars in China that was started, right?
No wonder they want to take it back now.
So they signed treaties. And then
take it back. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so they kept going again for years and stuff. And again, England were just decimating China and stuff. And they were sending in spies to commit botany espionage, where these guys were going in as spies to try and steal the plants that grew the tea leaves, and they couldn't get them out of China without them dying. So they created a special terrarium, and they literally went in, they got thousands of these tea plants, tried to export them out of China. They all died before they could get them somewhere and grow them. So they built special terrariums to keep these things alive, managed to get them out of China and into India, into a place called Darjeeling. Darjeeling tea? You've heard of that?
Yes!
Owned by the English. That was the first place that had tea outside of China. And so the British said, I think that was actually after the Second Opium War, because the Chinese went at the British again and tried to shut them down and stop the opium trade because it was destroying their community and stuff like that. The second time they went, they got decimated again by the English, but this time the French got involved as well, and again China were forced to sign treaties, basically apologising for any trouble they had created, and then were also forced to legalise the opium trade within China. So then the English just had open reign to bring in all the heroin they want.
Wow.
Sell the opium to get the silver so they could get the silver to buy the tea. Until, like I was saying, they were successful in getting the plants out of China into Darjeeling, where they started growing their own fields in India now. And that's why India has become the world's largest producer of tea leaves now.
Wow. That's
wild,
history,
man. Eh? And now Hong Kong's finally been taken back by the Chinese after all these years, and
that
they've
happened
finally
under Queen
started
Elizabeth,
to
didn't it?
rebuild the economy. Yeah, it happened under Queen Elizabeth. They got Hong Kong back and stuff. But wild, man. Like they just China owned tea, and they got raped and pillaged by the English for it.
Wow. Tune in next week for the back history on coffee.
Yeah, I know, right?